We are an EXL company, and this is our educational webinar series. And today's presentation is BI in the cloud. So welcome, everyone. Wanted to share a little bit about, why we're doing a presentation on BI in the cloud. And as you can imagine, we pull the topics from what we're seeing in the field and what our clients are interested in. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of interest in moving to the cloud, whether that's a full lift and shift or if it's a hybrid type of model, but it's certainly top of mind for a lot of the enterprises that we're working with. So we wanted to support that. A little bit about Data Source Consulting and how we even know about this. We are an enterprise data management consulting firm. We specialize in EDM, modern data warehouse architectures, and decision intelligence. So you can imagine everything in the back end from requirements, architecture to design to implementation is what we do. And then we partnered with EXL Analytics about a year and a half ago, and we're very excited about that because now we're getting into what I would call the fun stuff, right? Predictive analytics, machine learning, Internet of Things, some very cool cutting edge types of technology. So you marry those two together and you've got a nice mix. So very quickly, we divide our work into strategic work, roadmaps, strategy plans, vendor tool evaluations, health checks, and then implementation, the doers that actually roll up their sleeves and work alongside the internal teams to make sure that our clients are successful on the solutions that they're trying to implement. So that's a little bit about Data Source. Let me introduce your speakers today. These are the doers themselves, right? So we've got a great presentation today. It also includes 2 demos, and you have 3 main presenters today. So we're very excited about this. We've got Matt Caton. He is our Competency Director for BI and Analytics. Very senior, been doing this a long time, over 15 years, and has experience in a number of industries as well as technologies. Eric Linneman, Competency Director for Cloud. Eric as well, 20+ years experience. You've got the veterans here in modern architectures and of various different industries that he's worked in as well. Kip Lebstock, Senior Solutions Architect. So Kip is the one that can see solutions end to end. Very excited to have him join as well, and he's worked with a number of Fortune 500 companies. And then myself, I'm your host, Deborah Linger, Vice President of Sales, and I'm here to, knock on wood, make sure things go smoothly. So welcome. Let's go ahead and kick it off. I'm going to turn the baton over to Matt Caton.
Thank you, Deborah. Appreciate that warm welcome. Welcome, everybody. Here's our agenda for today. If you gravitate your eye over to the right there, that graphic on the right, you can see that we're going to start out at a fairly macro level. We're going to talk about the business intelligence and analytics market space. We're going to get into the cloud computing market space fairly quickly, but we really want to set the stage so you've got a good idea of the technologies that we're going to be exploring here. But then we want to dive right into a use case, a business opportunity for a company called ABC Cookies. And ABC is a manufacturing company that produces edible cookies, so not to be confused with the cookies on websites that follow you around. But we really want to take you through this use case and demo some BI in the cloud solutions so that you have the tools you need in your organizations to capitalize on these opportunities when you see them out there in the market. So we're going to use that to caveat a couple demos that we're going to do with Oracle Analytics Cloud and then Microsoft's Power BI. And then we're going to wrap it up by summarizing some of the key considerations and some of the key takeaways so that you can decide which path is right for you. And then we'll have a little bit of time at the end for Q&A. The foundation for the BI and analytics market space has been set decades ago by some of the larger enterprise players in the space. Companies like Cognos and Business Objects and Information Builders and MicroStrategy that left a pretty large footprint within your IT infrastructure. Not only from a server-side install perspective, but also was fairly demanding of your IT staff. You pretty much always had to work with your counterparts in IT to install the software, upgrade the software, maintain it. set up security structures, but then also to define semantic models. And what we mean by semantic models in BI are basically drag and drop interfaces where you put together friendly names for your data items, and you present a semantic model that can be used for self-service and for gold standard reporting. So it's ultimately a one-stop shop. The first major shift we saw in this market started happening about 10 years ago when you saw tools like Tableau and Qlik and Spotfire come onto the scene. And they said, hey, look, you don't need IT. You can install these solutions, quickly connect to your data. You don't need semantic models. And guess what? Our tools come equipped with very modern visualizations, very high-end visualizations. So they promise to speed the market. And as you can see from this stacked area chart, these two segments within it, that there is the space in the market for both different types of technologies. The next major shift that's currently underway was originally described as smart data discovery. Now in the space, we call it augmented analytics. And that is basically embedding artificial intelligence techniques, machine learning techniques into our analytics to really help get beyond BI and be very, very proactive and predictive, utilizing statistical techniques to help us get into insights quicker and more effectively and more efficiently. And what's really interesting here, one more thing to point out on this slide, is the fact that now these larger players, companies like Cognos that have been consumed by IBM, and they have been well positioned now. They've got heavy financial backings and have been able to invest R&D dollars within augmented analytics. So as you can see, these traditional players are very well positioned and regaining momentum. But one thing to point out in that top tier there is that the traditional players aren't the only ones that are recognizing these opportunities. Obviously, the disruptors are offering capabilities as well to really lower the barrier of entry to get into statistics and machine learning without having advanced degrees and without having to write a whole lot of code. So this is a very similar look at the data from the previous page, but instead of having the technologies grouped within technology type, these stacked bar charts represent the delivery mode for these analytics. So what you can really see here within that light baby blue, the cloud segment of the stacked bar chart, is that BI in the cloud is really gaining momentum. And so this isolates a number of opportunities, but it's also put us in a position that we describe as the tipping point. And that tipping point being from IT-led, enterprise-led BI and analytics offerings and solutions to departmental-based solutions. And so as an advocate of a single source of truth and a gold standard layer, this makes our jobs even harder. We spend a lot of time trying to get business rules out of people's desktops, that are buried in spreadsheets and spread marks, and really trying to conform and put together global opportunities for the organization. So ultimately, everybody is operating off of that same sheet of music. And when you go out and ask and answer a question, you're getting that same answer across the organization. So with all of these opportunities, it's more important than ever for us to integrate our data, for us to own it, master our data, put together stewardship processes and governance processes so that everybody's got the best source of vendor data, customer data, the attribution that we know that we can master. So with all these advanced capabilities, it's more important than ever for us to have a concrete base to report off of. So one more important topic before we shift over into the cloud realm in regards to BI and analytics is modern BI and analytics. And what does that really mean and look like? As you know, we can host our data, our solutions, either on-premise or in the cloud. And the graphics on the left don't necessarily do all of your data sources justice because we are collecting such a magnitude of data right now within our own ERPs, but publicly available data. And so that's what you see here, hosted, internally or externally. what do we mean, though, when we talk about modern BI and analytics? The first description is that of a self-contained and autonomous solution, a solution where an analyst has the freedom to explore, has the freedom to prepare their data. And what we see here in this first of 3 tiers is the preparation phase. And you're going to see some of this as we go through the technologies here. But I wanted to call out the highlighted yellow arrows. And these yellow arrows represent gold standard sources. So again, as a BI leader and a data leader in your organization, it's very important now, with all this flexibility, with all these advanced analytic options, to serve up concrete gold standard sources so that we can get beyond business intelligence, get beyond trend lines, and get into real advanced statistical analytics. Another characteristic of a modern BI and analytics solution, an optional characteristic, I should say, is giving our analysts the ability to create semantic models, to reuse those semantic models. And as you can see from the arrow, the white arrow down there at the bottom, if an advanced analyst puts something together that they're very excited about, that they want to share with others, they can then go back to their BI program and work with those experts to solidify that solution and then make it available to the global organization. The next key characteristic that I'm sure you're a little bit more familiar with is the presentation and the high-end visualization layer. And this layer is where we can embed some of these machine learning techniques to get predictive and prescriptive. And one thing I should have mentioned too on the preparation phase of that first tier is we also have the ability to do that as we bring in our data, to set our data up for predictive analysis and regression analysis and clustering and classification. So ultimately, this self-contained, autonomous, modern BI and analytics solution is intended to lead us much quicker to action and value. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric, who's going to dig into the cloud.
All right, thank you, Matt. So traditionally, we built BI environments on-prem using a very precise technical stack, but the cloud brings a couple of different elements to play. And there's the typical cloud benefits of scalability, supportability, availability, and zero capital. And keep in mind, the cloud is built to scale to infinity, but also with your budget aligned to infinity. So we need to do that in a very thoughtful manner. But there are other benefits that come, especially in cloud BI. We can try before we buy. It's very easy to provision and spin up a cloud BI environment. We can deploy in minutes rather than weeks or months as before. It's much easier to integrate external sources to the cloud than it has been on-prem with poking holes in firewalls and integrating from a security standpoint. And the most critical element is the segmentation of data and services. We'll talk about that a little more. We go to the next slide. So the cloud marketplace, again, Matt referenced this, roughly $18.3 billion in BI in 2017. It's predicted to go all the way to $22.8 billion in 2020. So there's significant growth going on. The areas that we're seeing the most growth are North America, followed by Europe and Asia. And there's also growth starting to happen in Latin America and Africa of the EMEA market. But the biggest growth is coming in North America. And really the workloads that are driving that are dashboards, modern data warehouse, self-service BI, and reporting. Next slide. So what are the common uses? We're seeing a pattern develop where uses are coming into play that are fairly standard. One is the centrally managed, where we have centers of excellence that are developing BI that is used throughout a company. We're seeing quite a bit of that. That's very common. Self-service is exploding. There's new tools, new capabilities. That's more happening in the mid-market, and there's integration challenges with that. You may be developing for a departmental level reporting or dashboarding, but integrating at the enterprise level brings a few challenges with the self-service market. Governed data discovery, we're seeing that quite a bit happening now with large corporations where reference data such as finance, HR, and legal is being driven with cloud BI and embedded BI. So a lot of products are coming with BI capabilities in them. Good example is the Einstein analytics that are being produced by Salesforce, which is a tremendous opportunity to really drive insight from the data you're collecting. And then finally, the extranet or integrated. And this is a great opportunity to integrate data from vendors, partners, customers, and be able to protect your private information while distributing vital BI to the outside parties. So Gartner released this Magic Quadrant in February, and it's quite a bit different than the one from 2 years ago. And you can see the market leaders, Microsoft, Tableau, and Qlik, and we're doing quite a bit of work with those vendors, and we're seeing that really exploding in our marketplace. But there are a few to watch that are really growing: Salesforce, Looker, and Burst. And we're hearing more and more of customers that are adopting those technologies for their BI. And then again, the legacy vendors, they're going to protect their turf, and they're growing and investing in this product space. Really, Oracle, MicroStrategy, and information builders are making heavy investments in this space. So let's talk about the considerations. If you're going to go forward with a cloud BI, there's a number of things. Staffing and skills. So it's new technology in many cases, unless you're doing a lift and shift. There's new skills to be built, especially around the self-service, because you may be enabling BI development capabilities in the business side where they're not used to that technology. And really that comes into play with training your business users to understand what's available and how they can drive insight from it. You need to know your needs, access requirements, security, scale, and the saying is develop globally and deploy locally. So develop using offshore when it's available to really manage costs, but deploy with your end customers in mind. And vital to this is knowing your data. So you may own and you may not own all this information, but understanding it is critical to the integration and driving deep insights from there. And as part of that, consider the growth and align your storage and I/O costs with that up front. And then finally, the security model in the cloud is different than on-prem. So understand security, understand your customers and where you're going, and develop a security scheme that really aligns with that. So there's different models that we see. In the model on the right, so software as a service, think of Salesforce. On the left, infrastructure as a service, that's often where you're provisioning servers up in the cloud and building and deploying in that one. And these are the three models: the infrastructure, platform, and software as a service that are most common in the cloud BI space. Next slide. And then our BI architecture really is based around services. So think of that rather than products. Products evolve, and as you're integrating best of breed, you're really tying in the service level. So think of operations. What do you want to own, and what do you want to purchase, and what do you want to offload as far as management and provisioning? And the critical part here, we talked about this, is segmentation between data and software. In the old model, we brought the data to the software. In the new model, we're integrating software to the data. And having that segmentation allows us a lot more flexibility and the ability to more rapidly deploy BI capabilities. And then really, the model here is integrate, distribute, and align with your audience. What we're seeing is a democratization of analytics as it evolves rather quickly. The costs and the barriers to entry are coming down quite a bit. Back to you, Matt.
Thanks, Eric. So now let's dig into our business opportunity. As we mentioned, ABC Cookies is a manufacturing company. They've got 3 plants throughout the United States, 1 in California, 1 in Florida, and 1 in Illinois. And they've been tasked to increase yield. There's been high demand for their cookies, and as you can see within the graphic on the upper right, they're a sandwich-style cookie and Oreo-style cookie, which is their flagship product. And throughout their 3 plants, they have one main piece of equipment, a very high-end, complex piece of equipment that we're going to take a closer look at. And one of the opportunities that has been discovered is within their current maintenance schedule. They've currently got a very static maintenance schedule where they take the machine offline for about one time a month for about 24 hours within this time frame. They service the machine and they get it back online. We're going to take a closer look at that opportunity, but the way they're looking to decrease that downtime is really twofold. One, with some sensoring capabilities, and then number two, really the more important piece of this puzzle, is with a BI in the cloud solution. So using some analytics and looking to advance those analytics as they learn more and more about their data. So here describes the maintenance opportunity. I want to make sure you've got a very good understanding of the data that we're getting ready to take a much closer look at. In 2016, there were 12 planned shutdowns. As I mentioned, taking the machine offline for about 24 hours. Unfortunately, there were 2 unplanned shutdowns, and that took the piece of machinery down for 72 hours, roughly 72 hours per time. And this graphic here just represents one machine within their Illinois plant. So you can see if you multiply this out times 3, that is a lot of productivity that has been lost. 2017, unfortunately, there are 3 unplanned shutdowns, increasing that number. 2018, they tried to compensate for the 3 unplanned shutdowns, and they added 2 more planned shutdowns. It seemed to be effective, but it didn't move the needle nearly as much as the management team had expected. So we are projecting to go live with the solution, this BI in the cloud solution, in 2019. And what we're projecting is, number one, to move from a static maintenance schedule there up on the top to an on-demand maintenance schedule, where we will be triggered with exceptions based on how components within the machine are performing. Beyond that, in 2020, we want to elevate even more and go from an on-demand maintenance schedule to a predictive maintenance schedule, so that we can use some predictive analytics for our data ultimately to tell us what to do and when to do it. And we're projecting to be able to turn the screws even tighter moving forward from 2020 and beyond, and continue to increase yield and production. So here's a fairly crude rendering of that main piece of machinery that manufactures ABC's flagship product. And if you start up there on the upper left, you can see where the raw materials enter the machine. And then if you traverse from left to right, you can work your way all the way down and see where the final product is packaged and ready for shipping. So what we've done is we've embedded 4 atmospheric sensors within the machine in order to capture temperature and humidity. We've embedded 18 ball bearing sensors that will capture lubrication levels and also temperature, and 4 glow plug sensors that we've installed in the oven to keep track of the performance of our glow plugs. Shrinking that machine up and putting it here on the top of this page, you can see here's our solution options. These are very high-level graphic illustrating option 1 and option B, and also what we're going to dig into here. And then very shortly, we're going to take a look at an Oracle Analytics cloud-based BI solution, and then also a Microsoft BI solution. And now I want to pass it over to Kip, who's going to walk you through the process of putting together a very strong justification for procuring one of these BI in the cloud solutions.
Thank you very much, Matt. Yeah, so, when you're looking at this opportunity for ABC cookies, what comes to mind is the CFO is going to say, well, show me the money. Where are the benefits of moving potentially an on-prem solution to the cloud, right? So there's some really good benchmark data on this topic in terms of what Gartner can provide, where you can extrapolate a lot of the information and build this business case. And as you can see, it kind of drills into 4 different areas of benefits in terms of cloud, moving to the cloud. You have unplanned downtime reduction, IT staff deployment, and management of the solution, as well as just overall IT infrastructure. Now, the IT infrastructure is a big component of cloud, obviously, because that's where you see a huge reduction in cost. But to mention unplanned downtime, and I was talking about the benefit case that Matt had talked about in terms of putting the sensors in the machinery to do ad hoc and on-demand shutdowns, but I'm talking about your 5.9 capability, right? This is the stuff that is very difficult for IT shops within the industry to achieve without a lot of maturity and scalability for HA, high availability platforms. And I'll get into more detail how this cost model is built, but you can, in the unplanned downtime, you get a bigger percentage in terms of reduction in cost, like 82%, and you can expect at least, 50 to 60, 65% reduction in your IT infrastructure cost by moving to the cloud. Next slide. So here's another interesting metric, return on investment, right? So this point solution we're talking about in terms of these sensors, what's going to cost us to go deploy that? You're going to have to do a cost-benefit analysis over a 3 or 5 year period. Typically, your hardware refreshes occur in that window of time, and that's where you're going to have to prove the benefit case. In this particular scenario, ABC cookies, you got your initial investment, which is probably even in terms of the development cost, whether it's on-prem or cloud. You got some development, right, to put these sensors and all the streaming data into the cloud and then do your BI analytics. So as you look at that as kind of the even playing field in terms of the investment, but beyond that, you got your software maintenance fees. You got to take into consideration your reduction in labor for maintenance of the solution, both software and hardware. And then you start to see a departure. And this is fiscal years 1 through 3, and you see the big benefits that you can obtain. And in this particular case, we're seeing over 272% return on investment, net present value 1.5 million. And Matt, you could go to the spreadsheet. Oh, cut over to the spreadsheet real quickly. Thank you. So I want to speak to a little bit about how are these numbers being derived, right? And I talked about the benchmark numbers in terms of ABC cookies and what Gartner is saying that you can expect to gain by going to cloud. So 56% of all global IT budgets are spent on IT infrastructure, 34% on applications, and 10% on IT overhead. So this cost model basically is a what-if scenario. And then you take ABC cookies and you can play some what-if scenarios. And that's how we got to these the benefit numbers for ABC cookies. You got a $100 million revenue company, 22% gross margin. And if you know that 1.3% of their spend is in IT, you can start extrapolating this into a cost-benefit model that really can be compelling to move to the cloud and implement the advanced analytics to gain the revenue benefits for ABC cookies. Because in this particular case, we're saying we're going to do a profit improvement of 1%, which is pretty nominal and conservative, and 12% to labor productivity increase. Let's go back to the deck. Thank you, Matt. So how does this impact your GL, your general ledger, right? Where are the costs going to shift from cloud versus on-prem? Well, obviously, the $200,000 investment is still capital, and that's going to depreciate. But then you're going to have a transference, right? Because you're going to have less capital or that snowball effect in terms of your depreciation schedule on the books that you have to worry about. And that typically for large companies continues to build up and build up and build up, and then you end up with this huge capital snowball that you have to pay for in the future years. So cloud could be a definite good option depending on the financial model of the company and where they want to spend their dollars. Pay as you go now or pay it later. But, and again, with the hardware refreshes that occur on-prem, you typically create that tsunami of expense in the future, and it's hard to predict because of prices go higher in terms of software maintenance and hardware maintenance, and it's really difficult to nail down on these really big license agreements. So this next slide here talks about what are the comparisons in terms of the technologies we're talking about. Oracle Analytics in the cloud, Power BI and Azure, and what would you expect in terms of 100 users roughly to go deliver a solution like this. So the two key comparisons here is that we're comparing is Oracle Analytics for the cloud as a platform as a service. So what does that mean, right? Eric mentioned a lot about that. Well, it's basically giving you a lot of capability beyond just advanced analytics and smart analytics. It's giving you some light ETL abilities, which means you can transform your data, you can do mashups, you can do deep dive drill-ins and cubes. So you get into a lot more, and you're paying for it from an Oracle licensing perspective, but yet it may be right for you to take your take your solution larger to an enterprise level. Now, Power BI is more departmentalized, right? It's not to say you can't take it larger, and it's cheaper from an infrastructure as a service perspective because you're not doing this, you're managing your own, you're rolling your own administration to some degree, but you're getting all the benefits of the cloud I spoke to, and you're not getting as much applications out of the gate. But this may be perfect for your departmental solution or a regional solution. And then if you look at the costs, they will vary, obviously, based on Oracle's model is server size. So our BPU server, based on you predict frequent users, number of developers you need, it doesn't really matter. It's all CPU based. Where Power BI prices, there's on a very low number of cost per user, which is about $10 per user. Now, if you take that user and the number of users you need for your solution and you increase that, basically you may introduce a server, and then that's when the cost will increase for Power BI in the cloud.
Thank you, Kip. Appreciate the extra detail. Now we're going to dig into Oracle a little bit. This is how Oracle has positioned themselves, smart analytics for everyone, which really reminds me of how Microsoft about 5 years ago, when they came out with some of their tabular-based solutions as BI for everyone. So as BI architects, this muddies the water a little bit for us as we try to design solutions that really fit everyone's needs. Well, let's dig in a little bit here. Just to give you an idea of the machine I'm working on, I've got 4 CPUs running here, 4 cores within the CPU, I should say. And we're going to go ahead and start out in the cloud. And this is Oracle Analytics Cloud. And a couple things I want to draw your attention to, and then we're going to go over to the desktop client and build some analyses on the fly and take a look at some data. At this point in the ABC process, we're trying to move now from that static maintenance schedule into an on-demand maintenance schedule. And so I'll show you how we're going to get there. One thing, though, if you open up this hamburger menu on the upper left-hand corner, you can see some of the different capabilities here. And ultimately, what I wanted to show you here on this online interface, this cloud-based interface, within the sample project, go ahead and allow that. We'll let it render up. It's going to ask me to do it again. Feature. Go ahead and try that one more time. So we're talking about machine learning and statistics and how these mainstream technologies have embedded these capabilities into our tools. So I wanted to give you an idea of within a data preparation, within a data exploration standpoint, where we can look at some of that stuff. So right here, we've got product categories. And if you right-click on an attribute within your data set, you've got this feature, Explain. So it's going to take a minute to try to render some of this basic statistical information that gives you a really strong understanding for how you can use this group, this dimension. So you can see on the left side there, you've got key drivers for product category, segments that explain it, and then anomalies for product category. So this is kind of the start of getting your head around some statistical significance for our different data items. Let's go ahead and flip back over to our full client tool. I'm just going to shut this guy down because he's kind of a resource intensive. So I've got the application open, and one of the first things that I'd like to draw your attention to, again, you open up the hamburger menu on the top upper left-hand corner there, and this interface is almost identical to what we saw in the cloud. And as Eric walks through Power BI, you're going to see a very similar presentation in that as analysts and advanced analysts, we don't have to learn online technologies versus a full desktop client anymore, because they're basically mirrored across 2 data sets. I'm sorry, across 2 different technologies under the same hood. So I want to show you around a couple different other opportunities that have been embedded in this tool set. We're going to go ahead and click into a particular data set. And so it's taking you automatically to the visualize. And if you think back on our modern BI and analytics graphic, we almost have the same three tiers here. But one of the neat and very helpful functions within this tool is if you open up your data set and you flip over to data tiles. Let's go ahead and get that main menu out of the way to get a little more landscape here. And you can see we're not building reports and analytics here. We are profiling our data so that we have a better understanding of what's under the hood here. So this is just straight up row counts. But before I do any sort of visualizations, I kind of want to understand this data. So if we go and we look at lubrication, what we see is that only applies to ball bearings. Okay, that makes sense. Let's check out another one, temperature. Temperature, as we can see, applies to all the different sensors under the hood there. So this is a very quick and impactful way to start to explore your data before you design anything. So let's go back to our main menu. We're going to go over to data now. And I want to show you a couple other key features here. We continue to talk about machine learning, which is a discipline within artificial intelligence. And one of the ways we can embed that within the data preparation phase is within these data flows. We've got data flows and we've got sequences. And if you're familiar with Alteryx had a lot of success in the marketplace helping prepare data sets for Tableau. Interestingly enough, Tableau obviously recognized that and has just recently come to market with a technology they call Maestro, which does a very similar preparation. And fortunately for Tableau users, now it's all under one hood. So within this data flow, you can see all the different opportunities you have to start training your data for predictive analytics, right? And we can set up, in this situation, we set up a time forecast, we can apply it. And then if you go back and you look at the sequencing, then you can set up some lightweight ETL, but some more advanced ETL to prepare your data for some advanced analytics to help get beyond BI. So that's that first main tier. Let's take a look into our second main tier, and let's go ahead and just build a project on the fly. So I'd like to flip it over here to this data set. We're going to add it to our project. And one of the things that is very beneficial is that it's recognized. I gave it one date. I gave it one date and time. One of the things, Kip had mentioned this a little bit, that we're pulling our data in near real time. We're reading that data every 10 minutes and pushing it to the cloud within our database. And so we've got this down to the minute crane. I provided Oracle Analytics Cloud with one date time attribute, and then it automatically rolled it up into all these other relative date dimensions. So we're going to take a look at minutes because that's the grain we're at, and we're going to look at we're going to explore one of the first failures that I'm putting my program lead hat on, and I've been informed that there was a failure in our California plan. Well, I recall I went through it, a failure on February 7th and within ball bearing number 6. So before I do anything, one of the things I highly recommend is to set up some filtering, right? It's going to allow you to hone in on your analysis much quicker, and it's going to allow the tool to be a lot more efficient. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to look at our sensors. We're going to drop that in, and we're going to go out there and find bearing 6 because we know that's our problem child. We also know that that happened in California, so we're going to take our state over there. We're going to fish out California. So now we're ready to go. We've got a couple filters on, so we're going to pick a couple. We're going to pick the minute dimension, and then we're going to look at lubrication levels, and we're going to look at temperature. So if I right-click after selecting those three, I can allow Oracle to pick the best visualization, which I'll go ahead and do. It's not going to pick the visualization that I want, but I just wanted to show you that feature. This to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense because I've got a couple measures on here. So I'm not pleased with that approach, so I'm going to go ahead and clear this canvas. And I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to pick the visualization I want. One of my favorite visualizations as a longtime data analyst is the combo chart. The combo chart allows you to look at multiple measures on multiple y-axes and really allows you to find insight. So I'm going to go ahead and take those lubrication levels. I'm going to flip them over to the other y-axis and close that hamburger menu to get more real estate. And right away, I can start to see some changes in my data. So if you work your way through, you can see that we talked about February 7th, there being a failure. And I got about 4 or 5 months here. So I'm going to go ahead and even filter this down further. So let's go ahead and look at the end of January. And right now, I'm starting to see some clarity, right? I see that temperature levels rise on January 18th. And then 2 days later, ball bearing 6 fails, and it takes the machine offline for 3 days, roughly 72 hours. So that's a major loss. Had I set a trigger up, I would have been notified about this on January 18th. I would have sent a technician out. They would have relubricated the bearing, and we wouldn't have lost 72 hours of production. So you can see there's an immense benefit for getting in front of this data. So let's go back to the main menu. And I put together a couple other analyses I want to walk you through before jumping over to the Microsoft solution. So I'm going to go ahead and hit narrate. And one of the pretty slick features here, and let's start over back where we began in California. Looks like 2.7 might be a misnomer. It looks like the failure actually happened at the end of January. But we can flip over into presentation mode. So my first question is that true? Can I rely on the fact that, okay, if heat rises on a particular ball bearing, is that ball bearing going to fail? So luckily we have another example within our Illinois plant on March 13th. And what you can see is that it looks like we have a direct correlation now there. So as temperature rose for this particular ball bearing, 2 days later it failed. Again, we set up an exception, we get in front of this, we are able to save ourselves 72 hours of downtime. One more example. This is an analysis around our glow plugs, and you can see I was able to add a little note in here. That's one of the collaboration features that people seem to be pretty excited about. And basically, what we see here with our glow plugs is that right here, on the 15th and the 16th, there was a parasitic draw within glow plug number 1. Had I been alerted of that, I could have sent a technician out, replaced that glow plug, and not had to experience this 3 days of downtime within our Illinois plant. So some very actionable analytics we've got presented to us. And one more quick thing, I want to switch it back over to the PowerPoint, and then I'm going to give it back over to Eric here. I was going to take these graphics and put them into Oracle's mobile application, the BI tool, but I think we've all seen that. We all understand that we can take our analytics and we can present them on a tablet or a mobile device. Oracle recently has come out with some pretty compelling mobile apps. The first one there on the left is called Day by Day, and they describe it as Siri for analytics. So you download the application, you hook it up to your repository, and then you basically are just asking questions. You know, what was my revenue in Illinois within Q1 of 2016? And you continue to ask it questions, and it's also baked out with artificial intelligence. So it gets to know what you like to look at, and when it spots anomalies in your data, it's going to alert you. The other mobile BI app that's pretty slick is called Synopsys. And Synopsys allows you to, and this is a free one, obviously with Day by Day, you've got to have an Oracle repository and an Oracle environment to use it. Synopsys though is a free download. I encourage you to go out and check it out. It'll take your Excel spreadsheets and it'll present those within visualizations for you. So it consumes the data and puts it in a very nice graphical user interface so that obviously when you get a spreadsheet emailed to you, there's not a whole lot you can look at within your tablet or within your phone or your tablet without having to zoom in and zoom out. This takes that headache out of the picture. So it's a pretty slick tool. And with that, I'm going to pass control over here to Eric, who's going to walk us through Microsoft's Power BI.
All right, thank you, Matt. So what you can see on my screen here is a simple Power BI report we created. Let's say you're the CEO and she wants to know, really what are the operations and how efficiently are we running. This is, again, the same data that we were looking at with the Oracle tool. Well, now we're looking at through the Microsoft tool, which is that concept of bringing the software to the data. And it's real simple. We can click on a site and filter our data down and get a look at what's actually going on at that level. We can drill down and go from quarter to, usually we can drill down on the date metric, and we can see in this little dashboard we've written, we've got some average values in here so we can track that by location or by time. But I want to show you something else that we used the tool for, and that is we ran it and got some insights against our data. And this is the type of value that Cloud BI brings to the table for all of us. So here, just the same set of data, we ran the insights on the tool, and watts and humidity form clusters when grouped by minutes. We know that. But when we come down here, look a little further, the watts, Tuesday and Monday have noticeably higher levels of production and higher demand on the wattage. So now we can go actually address some operational issues driven by data and the insights that the tool is providing. But these are the type of insights that the BI tools in the cloud can provide you immediately without having to do a lot of investment. And this is really that democratization of analytics. The tools are advancing. It's easier to approach it. We can bring data in very easily, and we can drive these type of deep insights. So in the sake of brevity and to maintain everyone's schedule, I'm going to hand it back to you, Matt.
Thank you, Eric. So we covered quite a bit of ground. If there's any particular topics that you want to explore more, we're going to send out some additional details where you can dig in a little bit deeper into machine learning or any of these other advanced topics that we've discussed. And then, but wanted to summarize some of the key takeaways so that you can really decide, you can take a step back as BI and data leaders within your organizations and decide which path is right for you. So number one, make an impact, right? Go out and look for opportunities that are going to make a strong business impact. Opportunities that are going to increase the quality, decrease cost, increase customer satisfaction, increase profit, and really move the needle within your organizations. Modernize. Look for modern solutions. Look for ways that you can blend the modern and the traditional. And start to explore these new advanced analytic techniques that are very accessible. We've got access now to advanced statistical analysis without having to bring in a PhD, without having to go through years and years of classroom study, without having to write a lot of code. The barrier to entry to get into machine learning is much lower and extremely accessible. So think about how the BI and analytics landscape is changing and prepare for that. Prepare for that those smarter analytic solutions and that augmented analytic opportunity. And seek out use cases, right? Put together opportunities that you can quantify. Kind of as Kip described, you want to start keeping track of what those investment dollars look like so you can really determine how positive or potentially negative those investments are. Go out and download these tools. Power BI desktop, it's free. Tableau, you can bring it in for free. Oracle Analytics, the DVD, the desktop visualization tool, go out, start poking around with these tools. Obviously, the vendors are trying to entice you to use their technologies so that then you take the next step But I highly encourage you to go out and take a look and take advantage of these trial periods. The analytic race is on, and we're at a point where, as BI leaders and data leaders in our organizations, where we really want to capitalize on these opportunities. And we don't want to just position our organizations to compete on analytics, but we want to be positioned to compete very aggressively on analytics. We want to put ourselves in a position not just to do business intelligence, but to go beyond business intelligence and go beyond the trend line so that we can get into some of the more advanced analytic capabilities. And now more than ever, I had mentioned this, but I really want to reiterate that at this point, it is extremely important for us to conform our data, to master our data, to put together initiatives, data stewardship initiatives in our organization so that we have extremely concrete foundations to leverage these capabilities and make the most out of these investments. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Deborah. Who's going to open up for questions.
Yeah, thanks, Matt and Eric and Kip. Appreciate it. Very informative. Yeah, we're going to open it up to the audience for questions. In the toolbar there, you'll see a tab for questions. Feel free to type those in at any point, and we will feed those to our presenters today. You know, first question that has come in, Matt, and this is probably most appropriate for you, is there a situation in a company where they would need to add on-prem capability in addition to cloud?
Most definitely. You know, it really depends on what realm of the solution that we're talking about. As you recall from the modern BI and analytics slide, we see a whole lot of hybrid solutions out there. So from a BI perspective, if you got a BI program that's a little bit more mature and you've got some technologies that you've built on-prem and you've been aggregating and collecting data now for a long time, you know, sometimes it doesn't make sense to lift that very large footprint and put that in the cloud. So kind of as we mentioned, the tipping point earlier about departmental BI and traditional BI, departments right now have opportunities to bring these tools in to leverage them, and you can put part of your BI solution in the cloud and still have your on-prem enterprise capabilities for more of your basic consumers.
Okay. Deborah, let's flip that question on its head.
Yeah.
When does it make sense to add the cloud to an on-prem BI solution?
Good.
And really, it's to drive value. We do this to drive value, extend the life cycle, get deeper insights without breaking something that's already working now that may be on-prem.
Mm-hmm.
So we can wrap a modern cloud BI solution around a legacy on-prem technology and extend the value and life cycle of that.
Okay, great, very helpful. And you know, just a follow-on question, Eric, to that. So let's take your scenario, right? Someone's got a pretty robust on-prem cloud solution for BI, and they're very interested in the cloud, right? All the things that you mentioned in the deck, right? That's, you know, cost effective. In some cases, it could be more secure, right? Et cetera, et cetera. What would be like a typical timeline? And I know certainly there's considerations, right? How much data are you dealing with? What's the volume? What's the complexity of the current environment? But just like in an average scenario, what should someone kind of, just as a rule of thumb, plan for the timeline to take some of that to the cloud if they already have on-prem?
So as we talked about earlier, deploying is very rapid, and we can do that literally in days to a week, maybe 2 weeks, deploying out the technology. Where the real value comes in is that analysis and that assessment up front to determine what elements can be driven to the cloud and where can we get insight from there. So usually we do that. It's about a 3 to 6 week effort, and then we usually deploy from there, and it could be in a couple of months. We can get a full solution to the cloud.
Okay, great, thank you. I know all of you have a variety of industry experience, and I like the case study that you took us through, right? It takes the solution and applies it to real world value. So given the variety of industries that you've all worked in, right? Healthcare, manufacturing, financial services, retail, is there any one of those industries that you find either are better suited for the cloud, or are any of those industries really not good fits for the clouds, just given the nature of their business?
Yeah, I can take that one, Deborah. This is Kip. So yeah, I think in terms of geography, you got to think about which industries can leverage the cloud best based on where you're located and where their data centers are positioned. So when we think about those opportunities, I think about companies like construction, people in the field, right? And then retail obviously is a big one. And then also real estate would benefit, I think, from deployments into the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
From a real estate perspective, it's interesting. Predictions are extremely important. When an individual is going out to purchase a home, make an investment, a very large investment, they really want an accurate prediction of what's the price going to be in 5 years. What's it going to be? I think they describe it as maybe the billion-dollar question in the industry. The more accurate our real estate agents can be at providing that information, the more benefit it's going to provide our customers.
Mm-hmm.
We recently did an effort for a county government here to build a cloud data warehouse. And it really was driving optimization for their field employees to have access to that information regardless of location or device. And using that information to optimize. Maybe it's inspecting restaurants or go, road crews. Where should they go invest their time, and what are the priorities? And really the cloud and the technology and the enablement of data being distributed transforms that industry.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I could take that same example that you shared, Eric, and I could apply it to, oil and gas out in the field. I could apply it to field sales team, right, that's out there. So, okay, very good. We do just have one more minute. So with that, can we go to the last closing slide? I just want to make sure that people are aware of this. So this presentation that we're going to do next is going to be March 15th, Thursday, 11 Mountain Standard Time, so same time as this one. And this presentation, we actually presented it at a conference in Florida a couple months ago, and it turned out it was standing room only. It was one of the presentations that I think really resonated with the audience, because we hear a lot about top-down data governance and a little bit less so about bottoms-up. So very excited to redo this for our online audience, and we hope that you will attend that one. So with that, I'm going to close it out. If you can just go to the last slide. Once again, just want to thank Matt, Eric, and Kip for all their effort. A lot of work putting this information together, and so we hope it was beneficial. We will be sending out a link to the recording, so if you would like to see it again, if you would like to share it with your colleagues, whatever the scenario might be, you'll have access to that. So with that, top of the hour, we'll go ahead and close it out. And so thank you all so much for attending, and hopefully we'll see you on March 15th. Thanks so much.